Welcome to the deep dive. So, if you've been following along, you probably already have a handle on the technical side of Ushkee. What the system is supposed to do, how the basic parts are meant to work.
But today we're taking a hard left turn.
A very sharp pivot,
Yeah.
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 Because our sources are all basically screaming one thing at us. If you want the real shortcut to understanding this system's future, you actually have to ignore the tech. Just for a moment.
We are diving entirely into the non-technical architecture. It's what the sources call the Ushkee universe. We're talking characters, visuals, the culture around it.
Right, and this is the stuff people might dismiss as, I don't know, marketing fluff.
But the architects see it as the engine of alignment.
Absolutely. So let's just state the thesis right up front. This universe element, it matters way more than people realize. This isn't just branding. It's the strategic blueprint for how this thing survives long term.
And we need to really dig into why this cultural foundation is being built first, why it's seen as more important than the technical details, especially right now at this early stage.
And what's so fascinating is how clear the objective is.
It is. The goal of this whole cultural architecture, it's not to confuse people. It's not about some deep esoteric lore you have to study.
No.
It's designed specifically for connection. So if you want to get a read on this system's momentum, its adoption curve, you have to understand the story it's telling first.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Because a lot of projects, they lead with a white paper, a technical breakthrough. Why would Ushkee put so much energy, so many resources into being a universe from day one?
It's a really foundational choice about people, about human behavior. Ushkee isn't just a logo on a tech stack.
Yeah.
They explicitly define it as a universe. And that universe has 4 specific parts that are all woven together: the characters, the visual identity, the story, and the culture. These are meant to be the main interface.
And the one core principle that just kept jumping out from all our sources, the real insight here, is that people connect to stories before they connect to systems.
That's it. It sounds so simple, right? But it's so often forgotten in tech.
It really is.
I mean, think about it. If you lead with complex code or distributed ledger architecture, you've just lost 95% of your audience. Instantly, you've put up a wall.
Right.
But you lead with a story, something compelling, something visual and alive. You create an entry point. It's based on feeling, on recognition, on curiosity.
But I do have to wonder, is this just very, very clever marketing? I mean, is there a real difference between building a universe and just, having a good brand with some fun mascots?
That is a fair question. And the answer, I think, is in that 4th component, culture. The sources really stress that culture is what makes something feel alive.
Gives it velocity.
Exactly. Marketing sells you a product. A universe is supposed to create a shared experience, a shared identity. Culture is what makes it sticky. It's what you remember long after you've forgotten the technical details.
It's a shared language.
A shared language,
Yeah.
which is crucial if you're trying to scale a community that needs to agree on big goals.
So the key takeaway for you listening right now is this. When you're looking at Ushkee's progress, the thing driving connection isn't the code, not right now. It's the story that's being lived out.
Precisely. They are deliberately choosing emotional understanding over technical depth at this stage. The system is designed to be felt first.
Which is a perfect segue into the characters.
Yeah.
Because if the goal is connection, they can't just be cool-looking designs. They have to be useful.
And they are. The sources describe them as strategic symbols. They're purely functional, actually, despite how they look.
So not just decoration.
Not at all. They're very precise, codified symbols of motion inside the ecosystem. Think of them as visual shorthand for really complex ideas.
Okay, so our notes say these characters represent 4 things that mirror the system itself: movement, purpose, energy, and role. Let's break that down a bit. How does the character actually represent something like what?
Okay, so let's use a hypothetical. Let's say character A represents movement. Whenever you see that character, it's associated with a transfer, with an action, things changing hands, moving from A to B.
Ah, okay.
You see that character, you think something is happening.
Got it. So then what about a character for purpose?
That character would be the anchor. It shows up to remind you why an action is happening. It's the main goal. It connects the dry mechanics of a transaction back to the point of it all.
And energy.
Energy might be the character that symbolizes community input or the resources needed to make something happen. It's the fuel for the fire.
Okay, and the last one, role.
That one's all about participation. It's the character that tells you who's involved, who's the builder, who's the user, who's the validator. It makes the whole web of coordination, well, instantly recognizable.
And when you see them together, you get the whole picture without reading a manual.
That's the idea. You see the four types interacting, and you understand a whole process without a single line of text.
Which is where this gets really interesting, especially for anyone who, feels overwhelmed by these complex systems. The sources actually talk about avoiding lore overload.
Yes. And this is such a crucial design choice. They are intentionally keeping the backstory shallow, for now.
Right.
They're prioritizing recognition over exhaustive lore. They do not want you to feel like you have to read a 50-page history just to figure out how to participate.
So the goal isn't to build the next Middle Earth. It's instant symbolic value.
Exactly. You just need to see the characters and get the energy or the purpose behind what's happening.
It's about respecting your time.
It is. If they'd built these deep, complex backstories, they would have just raised the barrier to entry all over again. Instead, it's a language of quick identification.
Okay, so that's recognition through the characters. Now let's talk about action through culture. If connection is the goal, how do they turn that good feeling into actual, quantifiable movement?
They do it with what the sources call signals. This is the bridge from the digital world to the physical one.
So things that might look superficial on the outside.
They look superficial, but they're actually strategic communications. They're designed to show activity, to show proof of life.
Let's use the examples. Merchandise is a big one. It's not just a t-shirt.
It's not just a t-shirt, and events aren't just gatherings. The visuals aren't just art.
They're signals.
They're cultural broadcasts. They communicate something tangible. When you see someone wearing the visuals or you see a picture from an event, it changes how you perceive the whole project.
So what are these signals actually communicating? What are the key messages?
It's surprisingly simple. Three things, really. One, this is active. Two, this is moving. And three, probably the most important for building trust. This is happening in real life.
Right. So many of these early projects feel so abstract, like they only exist on a server somewhere.
Exactly. The cultural stuff, the wearables, the meetups, that's how the motion is designed to jump from the digital into the physical world.
And that physical part is key for momentum, because you can ignore a project online, but it's harder to ignore something when you see people wearing it or when it's part of a real-world trend.
It creates a feedback loop. The culture is easy to connect with, that pulls people in. Then the physical signals prove it's gaining steam, which pulls in even more people.
It's momentum built on shared experience.
Not on speculative tech.
Okay, let's bring this back to right now, because all of this is a strategy for today. We know Ushkee is still being built. So how does this cultural focus help during that messy building phase?
It acts as a kind of stabilizer. When the tech is shifting and changing, which it inevitably does, the culture provides a fixed set of coordinates. It helps in three very specific ways.
Right. The three pillars. First, keep things simple. Second, keep people aligned. And third, keep momentum without complexity.
And that third one is the big one. It's the balancing act. When the finished product isn't ready, how do you keep people from just losing interest and walking away?
You give them something else to engage with.
You focus on the story, the characters, the signals. You create something they can participate in now as it grows, instead of just telling them to wait for a launch date.
This points to a very deliberate strategy, a sequence that really came through in the sources.
Oh, absolutely. The order of operations is crystal clear.
It's clarity first, culture second, complexity later if needed.
That's a profound statement, isn't it? If needed. It sets expectations for everyone. They're saying the framework of shared identity and purpose has to be solid before they even think about rolling out complex mechanics.
But doesn't that carry a risk? I mean, what if they build this huge, vibrant culture all based on simplicity, and then the system underneath actually needs to be really complex to work? Does the culture just shatter?
That is a central challenge. And the sources do acknowledge it. They're betting that the alignment they've built, that shared sense of why from the culture, will give them the cohesion they need to absorb that complexity later on.
So the culture is actually a risk mitigation strategy.
In a way, yes. It's mitigating the risk of future technical confusion. It gives the system time to breathe and the community time to align on a mission before getting bogged down in the how.
So you're invited to be part of the story first. And you trust that when the complexity comes, it'll be integrated into a world you already understand.
Which is why participation right now is so easy,
Yeah.
so streamlined. You don't need a PhD to get involved.
Yeah, it's purely cultural, which is kind of genius. The sources just list the ways, support the characters, wear the visuals, show up to events, share the story.
The goal is to make participation as frictionless as possible. If you want maximum movement, the barrier to entry has to be basically zero.
Right.
So the decision was, you don't need to study Ushkee to be part of it. You just need to connect with it.
Right.
And that ease of entry is central to their whole strategy.
It's participatory culture, not homework. You become part of the narrative just by showing up, which then fuels those real-world signals, which attracts the next person.
And that is the engine. That's the power of this Ushkee universe. It turns observers into participants, and it keeps the momentum going, even while the really heavy development is happening behind the curtain.
Okay, so let's just do a quick recap of the core insights here. We learned that the Ushkee universe, the characters, story, visuals, it's all a strategic tool. It's using storytelling to create motion, alignment, and simplicity.
It's an investment in emotional infrastructure. We saw how the characters are just symbolic shorthand for movement, purpose, energy, and role. Recognition over lore.
And how culture, through physical signals like merch and events, creates real-world momentum. It proves the system is active, that it's moving forward.
The core mission is always movement, participation, progress. It's all built on connection, not on complexity.
Right.
But this strategy, it does raise one final, really important question for you to think about. If this whole foundation, the characters, the language, is all deliberately designed for simplicity and recognition right now, what does that mean for the future?
What assumptions does that place on the systems they eventually build?
Exactly. Will the tech have to stay fundamentally simple to honor that cultural promise? Or is the real challenge figuring out how to introduce true complexity down the line in a way that the culture can actually absorb it, without breaking that initial promise of simplicity and alignment?
That's the tightrope they have to walk, the tension between strategic simplicity now and unavoidable complexity later. It's definitely the key challenge we'll be watching. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Ushkee universe.
My pleasure. We'll be back to